explain as much as you are comfortable about your work in security, like work history, not necessarily like what you are actively doing, because you can't talk a whole lot about what you actively do.
Oh man. So, if you didn't know, there's two levels of CISSP. Well, I say two levels. There's more like two statuses. Some people get their CISSP before they have work experience, and they're called associates. And then there's CISSPs that are members, and they have to have 5 years of relevant experience in at least two domains of the 8 domains covered by the common body of knowledge, the CBK, and then they have to have paperwork and another CISSP to like
Endorse them.
certify that. Yeah, to endorse them. That's the word, endorsement.
I looked this up 2 days ago. That's the only reason I'm nodding right now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, I'm the latter. I'm a full member.
You're a ladder because I can go up and down on you. Let's go.
Yeah. I've actually got my finger in a lot of pies.
Yeah, he does.
Well, if we're making the joke, just one. The domains of hell. Thank you, Omni.
Domain expansion.
I will say, what I really, really prefer is physical security. I like physical security a lot. I'm competent at other securities, and I would say I'm more competent in other securities than I am physical security, but physical is like my favorite. When it comes down to it, you can have all the controls in the world, but if somebody can get into your front door, they can do a lot. DPRK has figured this out, and they have started having their agents just start shotgunning out resumes. So what happens is you get a DRPK agent, like, you hire them. They figured out the reason you can't get a job is because the DPRK has figured out how to get hired and then embed their people into corporations. And yeah, physical security is fun and fun to test out. And I also just hit my mic. Great. So what they're doing is they're getting people into your front door, and then you're handing them credentials. It doesn't matter what your controls are. If they've managed to get people inside the door to the point that you're deliberately handing them credentials on purpose. Are there other controls for that? Can we prevent that? Yeah, but the most common entry method right now is social engineering. So really what we're focusing on right now is A, social engineering, and B, how to prevent people who have been socially engineered from enabling an attacker to move laterally through the network. Those are like the two big things right now. Lateral movement is huge because of how effective social engineering is. But I've always found physical security a lot more fun. The question is about what I've done and am willing to talk about. I do have stories, if you would take a story instead of what do you do?
Go for it.
So people are supposed to be out the door.
This big.
Getting to that. There was a night crew that I was a part of. We would check for people who did not log out of their accounts. Like the screen would lock, but they hadn't logged out. And these are shared resource computers. So we'd go through and remote in. We were using VNC. That's important because that lets us see the screen before like anybody gets a warning that we're seeing the screen.
Virtual non-consent.
Excuse me, Miss Receptionist, I have an interview and my printer is broken. Would it be too terrible if I plugged my flash drive into your computer to print it off? Yeah, almost exactly. All of these doors have card swipe and automatic lock. When you get out of work, 15 minutes before you're supposed to leave, the door locks on the outside. So this guy's waiting. I'm getting to the punchline too quick. So
edge it a little bit.
We spot a few accounts that are logged in. Yeah, whatever. We remote in, log them out, remote in, log them out, remote in, donkey. So we're like, what the fuck? There is donkey porn on my screen right now. We might want to do something about that. So the guys go down to the room that this is in, and they card swipe into the door. For some reason, they did not get law enforcement first. They swipe in, open the door. The first thing they hear is zip, and then a guy like shoves past the both of them and flees. So after a lot of analysis and figuring out who did what, it turns out that the person who was in that room didn't log out, didn't lock the screen, walked out the door. This guy was waiting for him to walk out the door shoulder surfed his way in and used that guy's account to look at Donkey.
Wow.
So I tell the story anytime a newbie is like, man, this locking screen shit is bullshit. And I'm like, let me tell you a story. Anyway, we had to pull that computer from service and shove it in a closet where it was labeled as dirty computer for years because the cops told us to preserve it as evidence. It might still be there. I'm not working in that branch anymore. It might still be there. I don't know. I'd assume at this point it's gone. It's been over a decade at this point. For the rest of my entire stint there, dirty computer was in our closet.
So there's a lot with that.
Yes, go on.
That's so public. And I know that that's some people's thing, but like, also, do they not have cameras in the area?
No, we didn't at the time, and in the places I'm talking about, you're kind of not allowed.
Nah, man, you have to create a full forensic image and review everything for evidence. No. Okay, so speaking of reviewing that kind of thing for evidence, I have a story that ties into that.
Awesome.
We had a customer who had some physical media from Hustler, and he bought it, had it for like a day and a half, and then brought it back and said, hey, the DVD skips, I want to return this.
Can't return. Anyway, go on.
And so, to try and pretend like we were being nice, the manager hands it to me. I'm the inventory manager, and she's like, hey, Nero, go in the back and watch this and see where it skips. And
not to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you because the way I would feel uncomfortable the moment anybody at Hustler tells me to go in the back. Anyway, keep going.
It do be fine. The back was my area. I was the king of the back.
I'm sure.
But we made him stand there. And she made me go back there and watch all, like, 83 minutes of this DVD to, like, make sure that there wasn't any skips. And then she handed it back to him and was like, hey, I just had my guy check this out. It doesn't skip anywhere, so you're not getting a refund.
All 83 minutes.
And he left. And I was like, we weren't going to give him a refund anyway. And she's like, yeah, but I just wasted an hour and a half of his time, so... But...
And yours.
Well, yeah. But also, like, I'm not going to tell my manager, no, I will not go watch pornographic material on the clock. It was just a thing. No cameras in their place.
That reminds me.
Why?
What? That's what happens when you talk to security folks. They'll be like, that reminds me, and you'll be like, why? So I was working in a different department, and we did a lot of physical computer repair in there. A laptop comes in. It's not powering on, blah, blah, blah. We get it to power on pretty quick, PEBCAC error. And we open the DVD drive. And it's full of gay pornography. Like, there's a gay DVD in it. And you have to understand, at this time, being in the closet was still a pretty popular choice. It wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
This was close to 20 years ago. We had to call the person and discreetly ask him to come in and retrieve his media. I think we worded it kind of like that. And man, I have not seen a walk of shame that bad, maybe ever. Maybe ever.
But at least it was, like, not awful stuff. Because I've had friends who were, like, Geek Squad, and people are like, oh, my computer's not turning on. And then they work on it, and it's just full of, like, illicit child content and stuff like that, and they're like, why the fuck would you bring this into just like the Geek Squad? Because we always like dump the files
with the FBI, actually.
Yeah, because they're like, we dump the files to make sure in case anything breaks we have a backup and all of that stuff, and then we're going, and I'm sorry, they're gonna fucking look, especially if you have a folder that's like, don't look at this. The techs are gonna look.
Oh yeah, I'm not even sure I'm allowed to talk about that at this point.
But I mean, I'm glad that people are stupid.
I have similar experience.
I'm glad people are stupid, because that's how a lot of these people get caught. Like...
It is.
But it's the number... Because I was talking to that person, they were like, oh no, that's happened like 5 or 6 times. Where they're like, oh, my computer broke and I really need this computer back. And when they're like, oh, that's weird. Because we'll be like, oh, well, it looks like this is pretty old. We could try to set you... Like, no, I need this one. I need this one to work. And so as soon as they're that insistent... Like, because there's normal ways to do it. You can be like, oh no, I'm not really in the market for buying a new. But like when they're like, no, I need this one. We're like, we are absolutely searching this computer.
Those are so ethically gray because, like, if the people in the back of the computer service area were not being ethically gray, we wouldn't be finding those people because
Yeah,
every place's policy is like, don't be nosy, don't go snooping through files you ain't gotta touch. Hell, most of them are like, don't even touch the computer before you image it. Like back in my day, that was the protocol. I'm sure, I think data, they try to save it a lot more now, but our protocol was like, just image it before you touch anything. That resolved so many issues because like back then viruses behaved differently. They were deliberate, like, inconvenience. Most of them were adware. They would affect how the computer operated. They wouldn't take it down. They wouldn't ransomware your files. They weren't trying to steal your online banking credentials because those weren't even a thing really.
they
And
were
like
just being assholes.
they were just being assholes and like serving you ads. They would corrupt registry keys and shit a lot and make a computer like not do what it's supposed to do so much. But also because they weren't doing the awful things, people didn't clean the viruses off their
Yeah,
computers as much. They would just deal with it. So protocol was to basically just wipe anything that came in to eliminate that shit. And it fixed like 90% of the issues that got brought in.
okay, so you are a rather tech literate person.
Uh-oh.
How often do you fully shut down your personal system?
Almost never.
I see, I don't understand that. I very much am like with my work system, it powers down I don't just log out, I don't just shut the computer. I shut it down every day. Anytime I get off stream, I shut it down because I'm sorry, for me it takes like 30 seconds to launch it, get back in. So like I shut it
Do
down
you know
every
what
time.
capacitor creep is?
I no, I do not.
Okay, so capacitor creep happens when you thermally cycle a machine. So that's basically going to happen every time you turn it completely off. As the motherboard contracts and expands and does that at a different rate than the surface mount components on it, the surface mount components will migrate over time, and
Hmm.
eventually they will break free of their solder joints. And long before they do that, they will start to misperform, malfunction, all that other sort of stuff. But what's also happening is any surface mount chips that are mounted via solder balls, thermal cycles also affect them the most. There was a famous NVIDIA recall where they had bad solder bumps, and thermal cycles were causing them to crack and basically brick GPUs at an alarming rate. If you've ever heard of like, oh, just put the computer part literally in your oven for a bit and that'll fix it. It comes from that because back then that actually had a chance of working because what that would do was it would reflow the solder and sometimes that would fix those cards.
That feels like a
Probably,
big risk to take for a sometimes. But also if it
I
was
mean,
broken,
it's a
like
dead
yeah,
card
exactly.
otherwise.
That's fair.
Because we're not talking about the solder bumps on the motherboard to the package. We're talking about the solder bumps from the package to the chip.
That's fair.
And I just realized not everybody knows what that means.
The solder bumps to the package are the things that help the extender stay on. How it like loops around the back of the scrotum. That is what those are.
Yeah, so basically chips are connected when they're surface mount chips. They're connected to your computer twice. So like you've got the chip on the little green slice of whatever it's on. There's an interface there, and then there's also an interface to the green thingy to your green thingy. And where these bumps were cracking were from the chip to the first green thingy to the daughter card essentially. So you couldn't just like take a heat gun and like resolder it to the board because the bumps that were affected were completely different. So some people without heat guns and stuff would just straight up put these cards in their ovens. It killed more cards than it helped, honestly, but it did help a few.
I would believe that. If it's got bumps, go to the doctor, especially if it's green and has bumps.
Anyway, if you're constantly power cycling your machine, you're putting your computer through this stress.
Okay, but how often is too often? That's the thing, because what about... Because I know that also we've had a lot of problems in IT, whereas people are like, yeah, I haven't turned my computer off in like 2.5 years, and they're like, have you tried doing that? And
That's only a problem with software that's like really written poorly, like Windows 11.
That was where we
or
saw the most amount of issues.
one of the things Windows 11 is doing right now, which it didn't used to do. Like, Windows 11 used not to do this. This is like an enshittification of the OS within its own version number. When it updates drivers for certain pieces of hardware, that will shut the hardware down until you restart it. And in our work, some of those devices are NICs.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody will receive a Windows update and they just can't fucking connect to the internet anymore. But the internet connection like icon, it only partially fucks the driver. The Windows icon that says, hey, you're connected to the internet, it'll say you're connected. But you'll have symptoms of not being connected, including not being able to do anything. And you just have to know to look for Windows updates and whether or not you need to restart for Windows updates. And you'd be like, yep, that's your problem right there. You have a Microsoft OS. But more generally, it's people who can't code correctly putting memory leaks into their software that causes that. Because I've had Windows Server machines up for like 6-7 years at a time.
That's fair.
Back in the day.
And that makes sense because I'm sorry, in a lot of the stuff that we work with, we have servers that have been running for like 6 years.
Oh wow, I did just 6-7, didn't I? Fuck me.
Whatever.
That's worth a shot.
I wasn't thinking about it from a data center perspective because a lot of it you see is in client stuff, but when we're talking about like a lot of the stuff I work on for the military, it's like, no, this shit doesn't turn off ever. Like, it has built-in redundancy to make sure that it never powers down.
Yeah. No, I love people who have only dealt with consumer hardware are going to cringe at this. But I love Dell servers. Holy shit, they are so good. Especially back in the day. Like, especially in like 2003, 2004, they were basically the only company, maybe outside of IBM, that you could get like easy hot swap hard drive bays like built in and redundant power supplies.
With those terracotta tags on it. Terracotta means hot swap, baby.
Yeah, buddy. I loved those. Those were the best.
Omni has Dell coming out to fix his computer tomorrow to replace the motherboard.
And they're still good. And even on the consumer side, Optiplex machines are like, or at least they were, they're like fucking trucks. I want to say like 2011, 2012, overcurrent protection finally became common in like DIY PCs. Dell's had that shit since like 2002, where their power supplies and they're like in their most consumer cheap power supplies would have OCP on them. Self is saying avoid
bucket story for at least 10 minutes. It's funny she said that because I was about to divert into that, but I'm sure we can waste 10 minutes.
Why would we wait 10 minutes for you? First of all, you can go back and watch the VOD. Second, you were there.
It was you.
Because you were there.
I don't know. It is
okay. We can do 10 minutes. We can yap for 10 minutes. That ain't even hard. Just like me.
I've always wanted to ask this. This is not going to make sense because I'm going to be as vague as possible, but you'll know what I'm talking about. In the place that we met, how did you end up there? Because I've spoken openly about how I got to that place, but how did you end up there?
You know, that streamer probably was just as confused. Openly expressed it at times, even. Oh, how do I do this? So I got into Final Fantasy 14.
Okay.
But I only got into it because a friend was really super hyping Endwalker. Like, Endwalker had been announced. They had just gotten through Shadowbringers. Like, this is how newbie I am to 14, by the way. I'm a tourist. As good as Shadowbringers was, he was like, Endwalker is going to be the shit. Please play this game with me, because Shadowbringers is already the shit, so I know you're going to enjoy that. I'm getting there, Plaus, because that's the next phase of the story.
I love that is where Plaus jumped in. Hell yeah, femboys.
That's the next phase of this story. So obviously, if I'm going to be playing this game with this guy, I need to look up guides, right? So that's whose guides I find. And like, guides / shitposting / humor, and it's funny. But that's not how I got into like the Twitch community. Because, and I bitched about this mightily over the years. The announcement that she was migrating to Twitch did not hit my feed in YouTube. So from my perspective, she just falls off. And then I hear about VTubers, and I'm curious about that even from like a security perspective. COVID is hitting, and I kind of want to be a gremlin in our Teams meetings. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to check out this VTubing thing, because depending on how this works, it might help me be a gremlin in my team meetings.
I love the idea of you being a team meeting VTuber.
Oh yeah, I was Ugandan Knuckles, and I was also an anime lady, and man, I was showing. I put on the Ugandan Knuckles skin when the CIO was showing up. Like it was announced that the CIO was coming, and I made sure that was the meeting I was Ugandan Knuckles for.
Nice.
There was a lady in HR who was laughing so because I didn't explain it at all. And there was a lady in HR who was laughing so hard every time I spoke that I knew that she knew. It wasn't like the regular kind of laughing. It was the I know what you're doing laughing. And I was like, oh no, she knows what I'm doing. This could be bad. But I kept going because like she already seen it. Like I can't undo it. Anyway, yeah, but I rotated from that to anime girl to, you know, all sorts of stuff. So the first VTuber I actually found was Rainho. And one day Rainho raids into this other VTuber, and I'm like, she's alive? And that's how I landed.
So
I was
real quick,
so mad.